What a pity, I was hoping his prophecy ability might come in handy during our exploration of the king's treasury. Number 03 sighed. Besides, I'm also curious about him. What exactly is his relationship with the great Sword Immortal? Why specifically ask about his whereabouts? Isn't he a prophet? Why can't he predict it himself? Are you still unclear about the great Sword Immortal's power? He's been chasing us all the way from Olympus until now. Do you think a mere proxy like him could foresee someone of that caliber? That's true. But why did you raise your hand to trade with him? Were you really planning to tell him that the great Sword Immortal is hunting us? I just wanted to test him and give him some false information. As for these proxies' so-called hunt, hee. Number 03 sneered coldly. If a group of proxies dared to hunt a genuine deity, they would truly be at the end of their lives. More importantly, don't you feel that these proxies are looking at us strangely? After a moment of silence, number 04 spoke up. Number 03 frowned slightly, his gaze sweeping across the surroundings from beneath the shadow of his hat brim. He noticed that most of the proxies on the second floor were secretly observing the two of them, their gazes sometimes suspicious, sometimes burning with intensity, sometimes hesitant, like a pack of hungry wolves eyeing lambs. What's going on? Have we been exposed? We shouldn't have been. Could that prophet have told them something? Number 04 shook his head. It doesn't matter. They're just insects. Even if they knew the truth, what waves could they possibly make? The transactions on the second floor gradually concluded, and everyone came down the stairs, returning to the gathering area on the first floor. The trading is over, this year's gathering ends here. Number 01 stood in the center of the hall and slowly spoke. Next, please leave one by one according to your number sequence. Wait a moment. Someone from the crowd suddenly interrupted number 01. A figure stepped forward and calmly spoke under everyone's gaze. I have no objection to leaving in numerical order, but this time, I hope we can leave in reverse order from the highest number to the lowest. At these words, confusion appeared on some faces, but most people's eyes lit up. And those whose eyes brightened were all proxies who had traded with Lin Chia. Following Lin Chia's hints, everyone had targeted number 03 and number 04 as suspected proxies of the twin gods. Though they weren't sure if it was true, as long as there was a possibility, they didn't want to miss the chance. After all, once they left this place, who knew when they would encounter the twin gods' proxies again? They wanted to make a move against number 03 and number 04. But the critical issue was that weapons were forbidden at the gathering, making it unrealistic to capture them here. And after the gathering dispersed, according to the exit order, number 03 and number 04 would be among the first to leave. By the time other proxies left, they would be long gone. But this proxy's proposal perfectly solved this problem. Leaving by number order? No problem, as long as it was in reverse. Number 03 and number 04 would be the last to leave. This way, the proxies who left first could ambush around Notre Dame Cathedral, and when those two left, they could capture them in one fell swoop. If they were the twin gods' proxies, everyone would be delighted. If not, they wouldn't lose anything. Understanding the key point, proxies interested in the twin gods' agents became excited, and a strange tacit understanding spread throughout the venue. Starting from the highest number, this number 01's expression was troubled, as if encountering such a request for the first time. I agree, someone in the hall immediately spoke up. As long as we leave by number, starting from the end shouldn't be a problem. I agree too. Agree. One voice after another emerged from the crowd, while number 03 and number 04's expressions grew strange. Something's not right. Why did they suddenly propose leaving from the end? Could they really have detected our intentions? Number 04's expression became extremely serious. It doesn't matter if they know, number 03 sneered. I've already placed marks on all the qualified proxies while we were on the second floor. Even if they leave first, they absolutely cannot escape from our grasp. If I weren't concerned that number 01's true form might leak information, I would have already controlled them all. Number 04 nodded slightly. As the voices supporting reverse order departure grew stronger, number 01 had no choice but to call for a vote. In the end, with nearly 2/3 voting in favor, number 01 decided on reverse order departure. Number 38, number 37, number 36. Every 5 minutes, a figure left the hall, and Notre Dame Cathedral grew increasingly quiet. After some time, number 05 stood up and walked straight out the door. A gray light flickered around him and his entire person transformed into a streak of light, soaring into the sky. Number 05 was also one of those who had learned about the twin gods proxies from Lin Chia. Since number 04 would be leaving next, he only had 5 minutes to choose an ambush location. He first circled around Notre Dame Cathedral, finding a high point on an ancient tower. Just as he landed on the roof, he heard a voice from below. "This spot is full, find somewhere else." This sudden voice startled number 05. He looked down and saw 3 proxies already crowded on the small rooftop, one of whom was looking up at him with an annoyed expression. "Sorry." Number 05's mouth twitched slightly as he flew to another tall building. "Brother, go somewhere else. There are enough people hiding here already." A proxy concealed on the roof spoke up before he could land. Number 05. "So all of you who left early are lurking here?" Number 05 cursed silently and had to find another hiding place. After being turned away 4 or 5 times, he finally found an unoccupied wall remnant in the southeast corner. After number 05 took his position, the mist outside Notre Dame Cathedral once again fell into dead silence. Pairs of eyes hidden in the misty shadows stared intently at the cathedral's main door, like hunters crouching in a dark forest, waiting for their prey to appear. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Finally, a figure emerged from the tall arched doorway, with the number 04 outlined on his black hat brim. He paused briefly at the door, then walked directly in a certain direction. "Tao!" From within the mist, someone shouted and more than 20 figures leaped out simultaneously. "Dai Lin Chia!" Boom boom boom. The faint humming sound came from the distant mist. Lin Chia and his companion, who had gradually moved away from land, looked back simultaneously. "It seems your guess was correct," Lin slowly said. "Those agents are no match for the gods." Lin Chia narrowed his eyes. "Soon they will bring a group of agents to the location of the king's treasury. I must get there before them and take the treasury away." "You want to compete with those 2 gods for the king's treasury? Isn't that too risky? That treasury is very important to me and absolutely cannot fall into others' hands." Lin Chia turned to look at Lin. "The divine turtle guarding the king's treasury makes it too dangerous. I should go alone. Please take a message to Jinian. If I get trapped in the treasury, I might need her help to extract me." "I understand," Lin nodded. Lin Chia opened the submarine hatch and summoned Red Face. Its wings created fierce winds that whipped up huge waves on the sea surface as it soared into the sky. The biting wind brushed past Lin Chia's ears as he gazed at the boundless sea and mist, his expression extremely grave. Although he had seen through the intentions of numbers 03 and 04 in advance and used those agents to hinder them, gods were still gods. With clues to the king's treasury in their hands, catching up to Lin Chia was merely a matter of time. From their current position to the red circle drawn by number 22, even riding a dragon would take nearly 8 hours. Too much time, too much risk. The only solution was the somersault cloud. Lin Chia had calculated that with the somersault cloud, a speed, he could compress the travel time to 2 hours, enough to reach the red circle before the 2 gods. But this meant he would have to revert to his original form. Having left the gathering area so far behind with all those agents being held up by numbers 03 and 04, there shouldn't be any unexpected situations, right? After a moment of hesitation, Lin Chia waved his hand to dispel the transformation magic, temporarily returning to his original form. A wisp of cloud condensed from nothingness, supporting his body. Just as he was about to fly away, a deep voice came from the void. "So you're the dual god agent they're looking for." Lin Chia's pupils suddenly contracted. He jerked his head up. At some point, a figure wearing a black cloak had silently appeared standing in the void above his head. On the hood of that cloak 2 numbers were clearly outlined. 27. The 3rd god who had infiltrated the agents' gathering. Zizbad. I forgot about this one. Since numbers 03 and 04 were also after the king's treasury, compared to them, number 27, who had been focused on finding someone, seemed less conspicuous. But he didn't understand why number 27 had targeted him. Was searching for someone just to disguise, and his true purpose was also the king's treasury? Or Was Lin Chia himself the target all along? While Lin Chia's mind raced with these thoughts, number 27 slowly spoke. Don't worry, I have no interest in dual god agents or the king's treasury. I don't care who you really are or why you're fooling those agents. I placed a mark on you and followed you here to propose a deal. Number 27 raised his hand, holding a gleaming silver coin marked with 33 between his fingertips. A deal. Lin Chia looked at the silver coin with furrowed brows. What kind of deal? You can prophesy, right? I want you to help me find someone. Chloe. Lin Chia recalled number 27's questions during the gathering and asked tentatively. Correct. Number 27 stared at Lin Chia, his eyes like torches burning in the dark night. Lin Chia hesitated for a moment, then sighed deeply. I'm sorry, although I'm an agent of the god of prophecy and magic, I actually don't know prophetic arts. Besides, as a god yourself, finding someone in this world should be much easier for you than for me. Hearing Lin Chia's answer, number 27 narrowed his eyes. You can tell that I'm a god? Number 27's voice contained both surprise and delight. This divine robe I'm wearing is a divine artifact specifically designed to conceal my aura. Not just humans like you, even ordinary gods wouldn't be able to discern my identity. And you still claim you can't prophesy. Lin Chia. This isn't prophecy. Lin Chia tried to explain but couldn't reveal the existence of the god's mental hospital or monkey brother, leaving him momentarily unable to refute. I understand you don't want to get caught in the whirlpool between gods, but since I said this is a deal, there will be benefits for you. Number 27 paused briefly before continuing. In exchange for helping me find someone, I can help you kill a person, or a god. Lin Chia froze in place. Help me kill a god? He asked suspiciously. Any god. Anyone below the supreme, all are possible. Lin Chia carefully examined the figure shrouded in the cloak's shadow and fell into deep thought. Anyone below the supreme can be killed. That's quite a claim. Could it be that under this cloak is a major deity with an astonishingly significant background? May I ask, who are you? He probed. Number 27 fell silent. After a long while he slowly raised his head. Under the wide brim of his hood, his eyes, shrouded in shadow, were filled with complexity and resignation. I am just an unknown god. The pantheon I belong to was lost in time countless ages ago. I am the last deity of this pantheon. You don't need to know my name. You can call me Number 27. Number 27? What god would call themselves that? The doubt on Lin Chia's face grew more intense. Seemingly sensing Lin Chia's skepticism, number 27 volunteered. You might think I'm not trustworthy. So I can kill a god for you first. Afterward I'll come to you with their head and then you can lead me to find Chloe. Do you accept this deal? Kill a god first, then find the person? Lin Chia asked in surprise. Aren't you afraid I'll just run away? You bear my mark. You can't escape. Even if you were ground to ashes and scattered in the wind, I could still find you. Number 27 said calmly. Lin Chia's mouth twitched as he seriously considered the offer. Prophecy was something Lin Chia knew nothing about, but finding someone, perhaps just needed a miracle. If, as number 27 said, finding someone could be exchanged for a deity's death, then this deal was absolutely profitable for Lin Chia. After pondering for a long time, Lin Chia nodded solemnly. All right, I accept this deal. The corners of number 27's mouth, beneath his hood, curled into a smile. He flicked his finger, sending the silver coin arcing through the air to land in Lin Chia's palm. Tell me a name, number 27 said softly. Lin Chia took a deep breath. The god of mischief, Loki. Notre Dame Cathedral. On the devastated land, misty fog soaked through pools of blood, with the air flowing with a thick smell of gore. Bodies lay motionless in the broken ruins, twisted in grotesque positions, with countless bones broken, barely clinging to life. In the center of the battlefield that resembled a meteor crater, a figure wearing a black cloak stood silently. The breeze brushed against the wide hood and on its brim the numbers 04 swayed with the wind. Before him remained three agent figures, barely maintaining their stance while looking at Agent 04 with terror in their eyes. Creak. The ancient door let out a muffled sound. 5 minutes had passed, and Agent 03 pushed open the door from inside Notre Dame Cathedral. His gaze swept across the devastated battlefield, contempt appearing in his eyes as he calmly walked to Agent 04's side and slowly spoke. 3 still remain. Your skills have deteriorated, Hephaestus. I held back, Agent 04 replied flatly. These few are quite skilled. If they were too severely injured now, they wouldn't be useful to us. That's true. Agent 03's gaze swept around. Where are the other agents? You didn't kill them, did you? No. Good, there are quite a few promising ones among them. Though their combat abilities aren't strong, they could be useful at critical moments. Agent 03 stepped forward and dragged out more than 10 agents from among the half-dead ones, throwing them on the ground like corpses. Agent 03 lifted the head of one of the agents, and on the blood-stained brim of his hat, the numbers 22 were clearly engraved. This one has been to the king's treasury. He probably knows some key clues he hasn't revealed. Agent 03 raised his hand and lightly tapped his forehead. A beam of light flowed into the body and Agent 22 in a semi-conscious state, whimpered twice before being casually tossed to the ground. Agent 03 repeated this process, tapping each of the unconscious agents on the head, finally walking up to the 3 agents who were still barely standing. Agent 09, Agent 17, Agent 38. Vishnu. Ari. The Egyptian Sun City has fallen, yet an agent escaped. Agent 03 stared at Agent 38 in surprise, then after a moment coldly smiled. An agent of a supreme god without backing, a perfect candidate. The 3 agents stared intently at Agents 03 and 04 before them. Agent 09's eyes were filled with confusion. Why are there 2 gods mixed in among the agent gathering? How is this possible? Agent 03 walked up to him and spoke with interest. I'm very curious, what did that prophet, Agent 33, tell you that made you all so unified in confronting us too? Under the divine pressure from Agent 03, Agent 17 remained silent for a moment before explaining what had happened. He indeed foresaw our identities, and used the information about the 2 divine agents to trick these agents into confronting us, while he slipped away first. This prophet is truly extraordinary. Agent 04 said gravely. His target must also be the king's treasury. He's probably already on his way there. Agent 03 narrowed his eyes. This mysterious agent of prophecy and magic had actually given him a sense of urgency. His gaze swept over the 3 agents before him and he spoke flatly. Now you have 2 choices, either die or help us with something. As Agents 03 and 04 disappeared into the mist with more than 10 agents, the ruined city once again fell into deathly silence. Inside Notre Dame Cathedral, Agent 01, who had witnessed the entire process from the 2nd floor, frowned slightly. 2 Olympian gods. He stood still like a statue for a long time, then stepped down the stairs to see Agent 02 slumped in the center of the hall, and snorted coldly. A voice cold as a machine came from under the hood. Agent 02, you should leave now. But. Agent 02 stretched out his hand, pointing at the devastated ruins outside the cathedral, his eyes filled with terror and fear. He had also obtained information about the 2 divine agents from Lin Chia. If Agent 01 hadn't suddenly changed to a reverse order of departure, he would probably be among those lying outside now. They've already left. You can go now. Agent 01's voice showed no emotional fluctuation. Agent 02 looked at the deathly mist outside, staggered to his feet, hesitated for a moment, tightened his hood and rushed straight into the mist, leaving this place. In the empty Notre Dame Cathedral, only Agent 01 remained, pacing in the ancient hall. He slowly walked to a secluded room and pulled out a list from a compartment, carefully examining it. Agent 09, Jack Claude, Norse Asgard thunder god Thor's agent, ranked 6th in the 10 presences. Agent 17, Prakash, one of the 3 supreme gods of the Indian Temple of Heaven, Vishnu's agent, ranked 4th in the 10 presences. Agent 38, Bifid Egyptian Sun City Supreme God Ra's agent, ranked 2nd in the 10 presences. These Olympians, for the sake of obtaining the king's treasury, they've really gone to great lengths. Agent 01 snorted coldly. He took the list and walked to a wall lined with brass tubes, raising his hand to unscrew the caps. The moment the caps were opened, a faint humming sound came from inside the tubes, echoing in the room. Listening carefully, one could hear the conversations between 2 people. This was not some artifact imbued with divine power. These brass tubes were simply modified simple metal phonographs, each brass tube corresponding to a trading room on the second floor. Because they had no spiritual or divine power fluctuations, being purely physical products, even gods hadn't noticed their existence. Everyone assumed they were special pipes that had always been part of this ancient building. Agent 01 sat quietly by the tubes, listening carefully to the trading recordings from each room, one after another. After listening to all the trading information, he took a deep breath and stood up from his seat. Brown Myers, King's Treasury, Gilgamesh. He paced alone in the small room, lowering his head in thought. Perhaps I can use this opportunity to also muddy the waters of Asgard. He stopped at the narrow stained glass window, his peripheral vision catching 3 corpses that had been in the corner of the room for who knows how long. These 3 corpses were identical in build and appearance. Except for the central one being the original body, the other 2 were withered duplicates. Agent 01 Ram Bader, Indian Temple of Heaven Maharaja's agent, ranked 7th in the 10 presences. Agent 01 looked down at the list in his hand and spoke softly to the 3 identical corpses in the corner. Thanks to you, I was able to collect so much information at once. The plan can be further refined. He pulled at his own hat brim marked with 01 and slowly removed it. The dim light filtered through the glass-like window, illuminating the ordinary face of a young woman beneath the brim. Her lips curled into a faint smile. The agent of the god of trickery. Indian Ocean airspace, a cloud-riding figure whistled past. Lin Chia was recalling his deal with number 27 while advancing at full speed on the cloud somersault. 2 hours ago, when Lin Chia mentioned the name of Loki, the god of mischief, number 27 didn't ask a single question, just silently nodded and disappeared with a flicker of his form. His decisiveness even made Lin Chia wonder if he had encountered a scammer. After all, Lin Chia had already crossed paths with Loki several times, and he knew very well how difficult Loki could be. In terms of direct combat power, Loki might not be top tier among the main gods, but when it comes to escaping and scheming, almost no one is stronger than him. Even if number 27 truly had the power to kill a main god, killing Loki wouldn't be that simple. However, as long as he could cause some trouble for Loki, that would be good. At this moment, Lin Chia was approaching the sea area marked on number 22's map. He gathered his scattered thoughts and focused on finding the king's treasury. He extended his spiritual power to its maximum range, searching the sea area from above bit by bit. According to number 22, the king's treasury was on the back of a divine turtle. If that was the case, this turtle's size would definitely not be small, probably easily visible to the naked eye. After more than 10 minutes, Lin Chia seemed to sense something and stopped above a huge island. Although there were many islands in this strait, due to the corrosive nature of the mist, most were barren. Only the island before him had some areas covered with deep green weeds. Lin Chia dispersed the cloud somersault, and landed on top of a towering grayish-brown mountain peak, his gaze sweeping the surroundings. Between the giant rocks at the peak, there was almost no sign of life, only the remnants of decayed tree saplings. Yet in the basin at the bottom of the distant mountain, green grass flourished. Looking down from high above, the island appeared to be covered with deep green spots, with more vibrant life the closer one got to the ground. Lin Chia's form flickered and he arrived on a patch of deep green land. He plucked a few blades of grass and carefully examined them in front of him. "Looks like this is it," Lin Chia murmured. "This turtle is truly astonishingly large." Under the corrosion of the mist, ordinary plants couldn't possibly grow, yet the surface of this island had some vegetation, and the closer to the ground the more lush it grew. This indicated that beneath the island, some entity was emitting extremely powerful life force, nourishing these plants. Judging from the coverage area of the vegetation, this entire island was probably part of the divine turtle's body. "Where's the entrance?" Lin Chia stood at the peak looking around in confusion. After hesitating for a moment, he leaped onto one of the deeply concave green areas. Boom boom boom. As soon as his feet touched the green land, the ground beneath him began to shake violently. Green vines, like swimming snakes, broke through the ground and extended hundreds of meters into the sky in an instant, then changed direction and flew toward Lin Chia at an alarming speed. These rebounding vines contained terrifying kinetic energy. One vine grazed a grayish-brown mountain peak, instantly splitting it in two. Massive amounts of debris flew through the air as countless vine shadows crashed down. Lin Chia's pupils contracted slightly. His form transformed into a shade of night, rapidly weaving between the vines, but soon his expression turned grim. They were too fast, so fast that the naked eye couldn't see their existence, only hear the continuous piercing sonic booms in the air. Even though his spiritual power could vaguely sense the movement trajectories of these vines, his body speed couldn't keep up with the rhythm of the falling vines. His eyes focused, and in the gap between several vines he quickly drew white slash from his waist. His form instantly vanished into nothingness. In the black and white world, dozens of vines passed through Lin Chia's body as if he weren't there, whipping the thick soil layer into a devastated mess. As the soil layer disappeared, a brownish-black turtle shell was faintly exposed to the air. The turtle shell was of unknown thickness, its surface emitting a faint black light. The vines extended from the gaps in the shell, rapidly destroying one mountain peak after another, crashing onto the turtle shell's surface without leaving the slightest mark. Lin Chia hid in the void, looking down at this scene. Just as he was about to pass through the surrounding vines and descend again, a deep humming sound came from beneath the sea. Moo. The moment this sound appeared, surging waves spread rapidly in ripples from the island as the center. In front of the island, the seawater turned violently like boiling water, and a black head the size of a gymnasium slowly emerged from the sea. A green eyeball rolled over the pale white of the eye, instantly locking onto Lin Chia hiding in the void in midair. At the same time, the surrounding vines that had lost their target seemed to sense something and began to rapidly converge on the void where Lin Chia was located. Lin Chia gripped white slash, and his heart immediately sank. This divine turtle's eyes could actually see through his position? Lin Chia had no time to think further. He emerged from the void, took a deep breath and used night flash repeatedly to cut through the dense group of vines forcibly breaking out. In just 3 seconds, Lin Chia had left 9 dark afterimages in the air, flashing beyond the coverage of the vines to stand in the high sky beneath the clouds. Lin Chia looked down at the terrifying vine-covered turtle, cold sweat seeping from his forehead. Although his current spiritual power was sufficient to support so many uses of night flash, this wasn't a true spatial ability. Using it with such short intervals also placed a huge burden on his mind. But he had no choice. If his movements had been a step slower just now, he would have been directly smashed from the air to the ground by the vines. Though one hit might not kill him, the hundreds of other vines wouldn't give him a chance to breathe, and would eventually pound him into meat paste. Fortunately, after Lin Chia left the range of the vines, the divine turtle gave up the pursuit and silently sank back into the sea, as if the previous world-destroying events had never happened. No wonder number 22 said that no one below divine level could defeat this divine turtle. Lin Chia sighed deeply. Forcing his way through with brute strength wouldn't work, and sneaking in as void would be detected. That being the case, he would have to find another way. Lin Chia pondered for a moment, then sank his consciousness into the divine mental asylum in his mind. Asylum of the Gods. Lin Chia walked through the quiet hospital corridor, heading straight to the courtyard. Since Gilgamesh's last rampage incident, the hospital had entered a state of silence. All caregivers tried to keep their daily activities as quiet as possible, afraid of disturbing the deranged Mad King on the throne in the courtyard. As if sensing Lin Chia's approach, Gilgamesh, chained to the black throne, slowly opened his eyes. Compared to yesterday, Gilgamesh's face had grown even more haggard, his eyes bloodshot, weakly gazing at Lin Chia standing before him. "What is it?" he asked hoarsely. "A deity is coveting your treasury," Lin Chia said seriously. Hearing this, Gilgamesh's expression showed no surprise. He sneered. "The king's treasury contains a large collection of top-tier divine artifacts, indeed enough to tempt any divine realm in the world. When the king was alive, countless deities had their eyes on it. I never expected that after so long, people would still be thinking about it. What puzzles me is the king's treasury has vanished from the real world for so long, why would news of it suddenly surface now?" Lin Chia hesitated for a moment. "I suspect your current condition is related to this matter." "Perhaps," Gilgamesh paused. "So, you've come to ask me about the exact location of the king's treasury? But, Even the king himself doesn't know where the king's treasury is. Before the king died of old age, I had already arranged for my affairs, including the handling of the king's treasury. This treasury represents the king's lifelong efforts, and even in death, not a single divine artifact within it could fall into the hands of Sumerian deities. When the king first became the ruler of Uruk, I found a strange royal turtle that could survive at the bottom of the deep sea without food or water, surfacing once every 100 years to breathe for 3 months, then submerging for another century, its lifespan rivaling heaven itself. So before the king's death, I ordered Uruk's most skilled craftsmen to relocate their entire families into the treasury, to maintain and care for the divine artifacts for generations to come. Then I hid this treasury under the shell of the royal turtle and set it free. Now with the seas changing and time passing, where this royal turtle might be, the king cannot predict. That divine turtle was indeed Gilgamesh's possession. Lin Chia thought to himself. I've already found the location of the treasury, Lin Chia said. But that royal turtle. I can't handle it. That royal turtle is quite powerful. Back then the king relied on the power of the treasury to subdue it, so it's not surprising you can't approach it, Gilgamesh nodded. Others might have no way to deal with this royal turtle, but you should be able to. You possess the king's tyrant's rage, and if you emit some of its aura, it won't attack you actively. Lin Chia's eyes gradually brightened. I understand. Gilgamesh pondered for a moment and opened his mouth, about to say something more, when his eyes suddenly fixed. That haggard, weak face twisted in pain again, veins bulging on the back of his hands. As he struggled mightily, the iron chains on the throne shook violently, making clanging sounds. Lin Chia instinctively stepped back, his brows tightly furrowed. It's happening again. Gilgamesh's bloodshot eyes suddenly widened, frantically looking around as if watching for enemies about to appear. It's you again, it's you again. The king will kill all of you. Gilgamesh's roars, mixed with the clanging of chains, echoed throughout the hospital. The caregivers busy with laundry and cooking were startled, whispering among themselves, fearfully glancing at the courtyard before lowering their heads and hastening their work. A figure wearing tattered kasaya leapt down from the second floor. Sun Wukong looked at the frantically roaring Gilgamesh on the throne, then turned to Lin Chia. What happened? I found his treasury and asked him a few questions, then he had another episode, Lin Chia said bitterly. He looked at the treatment progress bar above Gilgamesh's head, which was once again jumping back and forth. Any clues? Sort of. I feel that this emergence of the treasury should be related to his current condition. Sun Wukong nodded. You go ahead, I'll take care of this. As Lin Chia was about to turn and leave, Gilgamesh, struggling frantically on the throne, suddenly spoke. No, that's not right. These are all fake. The king is in the hospital. Hospital. Lin Chia. Hearing the frenzied Gilgamesh call his name, Lin Chia paused and quickly turned around. Gilgamesh's turbid eyes showed a hint of clarity as he shouted. Treasury. You can't collect it, you must first get star coin. Only with it can you. Gilgamesh painfully uttered a few vague words, then the clarity in his eyes receded like the tide. Purple light surged from within him, repeatedly striking the iron chains, creating sounds like the roaring tide. Gilgamesh looked ahead with a ferocious expression, releasing overwhelming killing intent. The king's Uruk will never allow monsters like you to touch it. Come fight the king. Chaotic words continued to pour from his mouth. Lin Chia lowered his head, carefully repeating Gilgamesh's last sentence as if pondering. Star coin. What is that? You should go now. Sun Wukong calmly stepped toward the chaotic and frenzied Gilgamesh. Lin Chia nodded and vanished from the hospital in a flash. Sun Wukong stood in the courtyard, looking at Gilgamesh with a complex expression, then glanced at the fearful caregivers around. After hesitating for a moment, he reached near his ear. A golden cudgel quickly enlarged in his hand. Sun Wukong held the golden cudgel in one hand and dragged its edge around the courtyard, drawing a large golden circle that enclosed the entire yard. The moment this golden circle formed, the scene in the courtyard gradually faded from the caregiver's view, and Gilgamesh's roars disappeared with it, as if an invisible hand had completely concealed the existence of the courtyard. Wait for me. Bragi, holding a harp in one hand and a small stool in the other, stepped directly across the golden circle Sun Wukong had drawn and entered the courtyard. Sun Wukong glanced at him. "What are you doing here? Aren't you planning to stay here and watch over Gilgamesh?" "I'm here to keep you company." Bragi waved his harp and smiled. "Two men sitting face to face is too boring. I can recite a poem for you." Sun Wukong squinted at him, his gaze softening slightly. He turned around, casually plucked a hair and transformed it into a majestic stone throne. He slowly sat down, directly facing Gilgamesh's black throne. Sun Wukong, wearing his tattered kasaya, sat cross-legged on the stone throne, supporting his head with one hand and spoke flatly. "Just so you know, I didn't save a seat for you. It's fine, your thrones are too high anyway, I wouldn't be comfortable sitting there." Bragi smiled as he unfolded his small stool and sat down. "I'm happy with my little stool." In front of the two opposing thrones, Bragi sitting on his small stool appeared small and thin. Sun Wukong gave Bragi a complex look, then withdrew his gaze. Within the isolated golden circle, two thrones and a small stool stood in a three-legged formation, somehow strangely harmonious. In the mist, Lin Chia opened his eyes. He glanced at the island moving extremely slowly below, took a deep breath and descended on his cloud once again. The vines scattered across the island, sensing Lin Chia's approach, shot up into the sky again, lashing toward his face like lightning. Lin Chia narrowed his eyes and took a step forward in midair. Boom! The mighty pressure of a king's authority spread rapidly with him at its center, raising circular waves in the surrounding sea. The vines that had flown halfway into the air simultaneously trembled and paused in midair. Tyrant's rage. The moment this aura appeared, the slowly moving king turtle seemed to sense something. Its green eyes rotated to stare at Lin Chia in the sky. A moment later, the vines in midair simultaneously retracted back into the turtle's shell. It worked indeed. Lin Chia's lips curled into a smile as he descended directly onto the turtle's shell. His mental power swept the surroundings, finding a gap at the edge of the shell that led inside. Without the king turtle's obstruction, Lin Chia entered smoothly. According to Gilgamesh, the king's treasury was inside the king turtle's shell. As soon as Lin Chia entered, he saw its existence. It was a massive blue cube floating in the dark void inside the shell, emitting a faint white light. Roughly estimated, it was about the size of several gymnasiums. Its surface was engraved with countless dark gold patterns, mysterious yet ornate. Such a large object. No wonder Gilgamesh said I couldn't take it away. Lin Chia flew around the cube trying to control it with dark erosion. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move it even slightly. He couldn't even inscribe summoning magic marks on it. The treasury itself seemed to be a powerful divine artifact. Lin Chia placed his palm on the cube's surface. Ripples spread across the treasury's surface, and the dark gold patterns gradually lit up. The next moment his figure disappeared from the spot. When Lin Chia opened his eyes again, he found himself in a desert with yellow sand swirling around. The treasury's internal space? It's larger than I imagined. Lin Chia looked around. Under the azure sky, countless sand dunes stretched endlessly with no visible boundaries. In Lin Chia's understanding, the king's treasury should be a warehouse for storing divine artifacts. He didn't expect to find such realistic natural scenery. But thinking carefully, it wasn't surprising. If Gilgamesh could relocate Uruk's best weapon forging master and his family into the treasury, it meant there was an environment suitable for human survival. Who knows if that family still survived in the treasury after thousands of years. Lin Chia, wearing a black cloak, summoned Somersault Cloud on a sand dune and soared into the sky, his mental power scanning the surroundings. According to Gilgamesh, he couldn't claim this treasury unless he found the star coin. But with the treasury being so vast, where could the star coin be hidden? Just as Lin Chia flew into the air, he seemed to sense something and suddenly looked back. 3 black dots rapidly enlarged in his vision. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A silver metal flying bird, a blood-colored spear, and a pair of winged shoes were approaching him at an astonishing speed. Divine artifacts? Lin Chia's heart tightened as he immediately accelerated forward at full speed. The speed of Somersault Cloud was already considered the pinnacle of flight speed. With Lin Chia's full effort, he began to gradually distance himself from the silver bird and spear. However, the winged boots not only kept up but were getting closer. Moreover, the faster Lin Chia went, the faster the boots moved, rapidly closing the gap between them. How is this possible? Lin Chia watched in disbelief as the boots frantically approached through the air. After pondering for a while, he deliberately slowed the somersault cloud. Simultaneously, the boots' speed also gradually weakened, and the distance between them grew larger. Lin Chia finally discovered the pattern of these boots. The faster I go, the better they can catch up? And if I go slow enough, they fall behind? What a strange divine artifact. Although Lin Chia had found the boots' pattern and could shake them off by slowing down, once he reduced his speed, the spear and silver bird would immediately catch up. Though he didn't know the abilities of those two artifacts, Lin Chia sensed he probably couldn't withstand their attacks. After a moment of hesitation, Lin Chia abandoned the idea of flying and landed back in the desert. The three flying artifacts circled in the sky for a long time, then seemingly bored, departed on their own. These artifacts have developed their own consciousness. Is it the effect of being nurtured in this treasury for thousands of years? Lin Chia finally sighed in relief as he watched them leave. Fortunately, these three artifacts seemed merely bored rather than harboring killing intent. Otherwise, he might have faced a life-or-death crisis as soon as he entered the treasury. Lin Chia, wearing his cloak, climbed a sand dune and gazed along the horizon into the distance, vaguely seeing a tall, stretching black silhouette. What is that? A city. Lin Chia's brows slightly furrowed. He set off, walking directly toward the black silhouette. The black silhouette was very far from Lin Chia. Even at his pace, he hadn't reached it after walking for several hours. However, as he got closer, the true appearance of the black silhouette gradually revealed itself to Lin Chia. It was a city wall. Black bricks emitting a faint glow were stacked layer upon layer. Sunlight falling on them couldn't reflect even the slightest bit of light, as if it were a stretching black hole, devouring all light that fell on its surface. Lin Chia walked to the top of a nearby sand dune and looked up at the towering black city wall, his face showing surprise. Indeed a city. Was it built by humans or is it some special divine artifact? Just as Lin Chia was wondering, the dark red city gate at the center of the black wall slowly opened. 7 or 8 bare-chested, muscular men came out from the city, pulling several wooden carts loaded with empty barrels, chatting and laughing. Judging from the style of their clothing, they weren't from modern times but likely from Gilgamesh's era. Could they be descendants of the forging family from Uruk? Lin Chia didn't rush to enter the city but hid behind a sand dune, secretly observing these people with his mental power. After a moment of hesitation, he transformed into a shadow of night and quietly followed behind them. Several large men were dragging a wooden cart, slowly advancing across the desert. Rough sounds of revelry and cursing echoed in the air. This ancient language entered Lin Chia's ears and automatically transformed into Chinese that he could understand. How much fine wine do you think we can pray for today? At least 40 kilograms, right? Last time we brought back too little and the city lord was unhappy. Last time it was because old 7 secretly drank several kilograms on the way. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had only 20 kilograms left when we got back. Old 6, say something. You're always like a silent oil bottle. How are we going to amuse the wine god later if you're like this? Forget it. He's been like this since he was little. Today let's all be a bit louder and put in more effort. Following them as they left the city and headed toward the eastern desert, Lin Chia's confusion grew increasingly intense. Wine god. What was that? After walking for about half an hour, the group of men finally stopped in front of a dried-up oasis. They put down the wooden cart behind them and gathered around an empty depression. They piled nearby branches together, and one of the men bent down beside the pile, vigorously drilling to create fire. Everyone get ready. This time use the dance we rehearsed last night. The other men spread out to different corners as if facing a great enemy, staring intently at the black cave in the center of the depression and solemnly spoke. Understood. Crackle. The man drilling for fire successfully lit the pile of branches. A flame rose from the edge of the water hollow, and wisps of smoke ascended to the sky. The moment this flame appeared, small pebbles scattered in the water hollow began to tremble slightly. Lin Chia, hiding behind a sand dune, let out a soft exclamation and fixed his gaze on the black cave in the center of the hollow. After several seconds of trembling, a golden wine pot suddenly flew out from the cave, hovering above the water hollow, seemingly searching for the source of fire. At the same time, the men surrounding the hollow simultaneously crouched down like sumo wrestlers, clapping their hands heavily above their heads. "Hey!" The crisp sound of clapping and the men's shouts immediately attracted the attention of the golden wine pot. Then these men surrounded the water hollow and powerfully danced their bodies, beginning a masculine yet aesthetically pleasing dance. Accompanied by body movements that whistled through the air, they opened their mouths wide and forcefully shouted some obscure tones, like an ancient blessing chant echoing over the dried oasis. They sang and danced, all eyes fixed on the golden wine pot above the water hollow. Bean-sized sweat drops slid down their cheeks, showing how hard they were trying. Lin Chia was shocked, his mouth wide open. What was this? Ancient idol trainees? What shocked Lin Chia most was that as these men sang and danced, the golden wine pot in the air seemed to become excited. It enthusiastically swayed its body as if cheering on the men. Whoosh! As the wine pot's movements became more intense, rose-colored wine poured frantically from the top of the pot, irrigating the dried water hollow and gradually forming a pool of wine. The intoxicating aroma of wine permeated the air. The men singing and dancing at the edge of the hollow kept swallowing their saliva, joy appearing on their faces. As the last beat fell, the men simultaneously stopped, breathing heavily. The golden wine pot jumped excitedly as if applauding them, and with each jump, even larger amounts of fine wine splashed out. Farewell to the wine god. The men bowed in unison to the golden wine pot. Old Six, who had been maintaining the fire, quickly extinguished it. The wine pot, in high spirits, circled in the air before returning to its cave. Once the wine pot disappeared, the men immediately erupted in cheers, taking empty barrels from the wooden cart and quickly filling them with wine from the pool. A wine pot that pours out wine when excited. Is this also one of the divine tools collected by Gilgamesh back then? Lin Chia witnessed the entire process, his eyes full of shock. The men finished pouring the wine from the hollow, filling the wooden cart completely, the smiles on their faces unstoppable. Wow, this time it must be at least 60 kilograms, right? It seems the dance we rehearsed overnight was effective. This time when we return, the city lord should reward us generously. Let's go back to the city. I need to go take a piss. Old Six spoke somewhat awkwardly. TSK. Go, we'll leave after you're done. Amid the joyful conversation of the men, Old Six quickly left the oasis to find a suitable place to relieve himself. Lin Chia narrowed his eyes, knowing the opportunity had come, and immediately followed, becoming one with the night. Old Six climbed over a sand dune and seeing no one around began to undo his belt. At that moment, a heavy blow struck the back of his head. His eyes rolled back and he was knocked unconscious, falling onto the sand. Lin Chia stood calmly behind him wearing a black cloak. A brilliant magical light radiated from beneath his feet. When the light dissipated, his appearance had completely transformed into that of the fallen Old Six. He opened his mouth, simply mimicking a few sentences in the other's voice, then turned and walked back to the main group. Old Six is back, let's go. Let's go, find a place to have a drink when we get back. No one noticed anything unusual about Old Six. They all pulled the fully loaded wooden cart together and headed toward the city. Following these men, Lin Chia successfully entered behind the Black City walls. This city had existed in the king's treasury for who knows how many years. Because it was isolated from the outside world, there were no foreign faces. If he hadn't transformed into a native who already existed in the city, he would likely have been discovered immediately. And this typically silent Old Six was undoubtedly his best choice. After passing through the city walls, numerous ancient-styled brick buildings appeared before him. For a moment, Lin Chia thought he had traveled back thousands of years to an ancient time, entering some magnificent and historically rich city-state. The wine-seeking brothers are back. Oh, it's you guys. How was today's harvest? Hey, see those barrels full of wine at the back? Today we got a full 60 kilograms. 60 kilograms. So much. The wooden cart traveled on the uneven stone brick road, making a dull sound. Some city residents gathered around, curiously chatting with the other men, their faces showing expressions of shock. Perhaps knowing that Lin Chia's Old Six didn't like to talk, or perhaps because his interpersonal relationships weren't good to begin with, No one came to talk to him, which suited Lin Chia just fine. His gaze calmly swept the surroundings, suddenly falling on the door eaves of these houses. His brows slightly furrowed. Almost every household's door had an ancient-styled bronze badge hanging on it, with mysterious and complex patterns on the surface. Lin Chia recognized these badges. When Gilgamesh had just left the hospital room, Merlin had given him a similar fragment. This was the emblem of the kingdom of Uruk. It seems these are indeed the descendants of the forging family that Gilgamesh left in the king's treasury back then. In other words, the ancient kingdom of Uruk still has a lineage that hasn't completely died out. While Lin Chia was pondering, everyone pushing the wooden cart had already arrived at the center of a spacious square. An old man wearing a gray robe and holding a cane was already waiting in front of them. City Lord. The leading man excitedly waved his hand. You've finally returned. The city lord looked at the barrels of wine fully loaded on everyone's cart, and a smile appeared on his wrinkled face. Looks like today's harvest is good. A full 60 kilograms, city lord. Enough for the city to drink for several days. Well done. Later, everyone can collect 2 extra bags of rice. Thank you, city lord. The big man repeatedly expressed his gratitude, smiling as he walked past Lin Chia and patted him on the shoulder. Hey old six, why aren't you happy at all? Lin Chia's mouth twitched and he forced out a smile. Don't force him. Old six, we're going to have a celebration drink, are you coming? Lin Chia firmly shook his head. I'll pass. Then we'll go. The big men didn't insist, they put their arms around each other's shoulders and left laughing, leaving Lin Chia alone in the square. Just as he was about to turn and leave, the elderly city lord suddenly spoke. Old six, wait a moment. Lin Chia's gaze focused and he stopped. What is it, city lord? He asked, turning his head. The city lord leaned on his cane, lightly waved his hand, and someone behind him came forward carrying a wooden box, walked up to Lin Chia and opened it. Inside the wooden box was a deep blue crystal ball. This is Old Six. Now that you've come of age, according to our Wu City's rules, each household must receive a divine artifact to maintain and care for, passing it down through generations. This crystal was originally in your parents' care, and since they had an accident and you now have the ability to maintain it independently, it will be entrusted to you from now on. The city lord walked up to him and spoke earnestly. Lin Chia was stunned for a while before finally coming to his senses and taking the wooden box containing the crystal ball. Yes, city lord, Lin Chia responded. The city lord patted him on the shoulder and turned to leave. Lin Chia stood alone in the center of the square holding the wooden box, feeling somewhat bewildered. After coming of age, each household receives a divine artifact to maintain. Why does this sound so mystical? It's as absurd as claiming that after coming of age, everyone in a certain city gets to adopt a giant panda. In any case, there was no reason to refuse a divine artifact that had been forced into his hands. Lin Chia quickly left with the wooden box, extending his spiritual power to explore this ancient and mysterious city. The city wasn't large. Lin Chia roughly estimated that there were fewer than 300 people in the city, but each household had many children, so calculated differently, there were about 30+ households in the city. In other words, just in this city alone, there were 30 divine artifacts hidden? Then what about the entire treasury? Was Gilgamesh's treasure truly this terrifying? But thinking carefully, it wasn't too outrageous. Divine artifacts also had their hierarchies. Since entering this treasury, Lin Chia hadn't seen any impressive divine artifacts. Boots that run faster the faster you chase them. Spears and birds that fly around for fun. Wine jars that enjoy watching people sing and dance and possess endless wine. Although they were called divine artifacts, compared to Lin Chia's Amonomurakumo sword and the divine calamity, in Yulalongbai's hands, they weren't even in the same league. Of course, this didn't mean there were no impressive divine artifacts in the entire Wu City. Clang. In a blacksmith shop by the street, a muscular man with a bare upper body was holding a small black hammer, earnestly hammering a sword blank below him. Each time he brought down the hammer, a ferocious lightning bolt streaked across the sky. The terrifying aura rolled over the street and even Lin Chia felt the pressure. The man wielding the hammer was merely mortal flesh, but the phenomena in the sky were purely the power of that hammer. Not only that, at the end of the street, An elderly woman holding a green bell gently shook it at the pile of dead branches and leaves in the courtyard, and a whirlwind arose from nowhere, blowing all the garbage up to the clouds, dropping it in the desert. Farmers with sickles, girls with bracelets, young men playing wind flutes. Amidst the ordinary and simple daily life, extraordinary divine artifact powers were everywhere. Here, divine artifacts no longer seemed to be lofty divine artifacts, but rather a part of the lives of the people in this city. Lin Chie's spiritual power constantly monitored the situation on the nearby streets, and he also heard some information from the passing pedestrians. All the divine artifacts stored in this Wu city were controllable and harmless. Outside the city walls was the domain of uncontrollable divine artifacts. Here, uncontrollable didn't mean they were too dangerous, but rather that after developing consciousness, these artifacts were unwilling to dwell within the city walls, such as the mischievous and noisy wine jar as well as the boots and birds. Of course, outside the city walls, there were also some extremely dangerous divine artifacts, but such existences were beyond the reach of the people in Wu City. Unfortunately, despite listening for a long time, Lin Chie couldn't find any information about the whereabouts of the star coin artifact. After wandering around the city, he found a relatively quiet tavern and sat down. This city concealed too many divine artifacts. Not just him, even human top-tier powerhouses would likely stumble badly if they underestimated the locals here. To find that star coin, he needed to use wit, not brute force. Just as Lin Chie was carefully calculating, a thunderous explosion suddenly sounded from the sky, followed by the violent shaking of the ground beneath everyone's feet. Lin Chie seemed to sense something and looked up at the sky. His eyes narrowed slightly and a smile curled at the corner of his mouth. Looks like the fools who are about to stumble have arrived. Mist. Above the churning sea surface, two figures stood tall in the sky, looking down at the king turtle swimming below, joy appearing on their faces. Found it, it's indeed here. Number 04 murmured. Number 03 glanced at the king turtle below, then turned to look at the 20+ agents wearing black cloaks behind him. Have you all understood what I've instructed? Either bring out the king's treasury within 3 days, or be tortured to death by the poison I've planted in you, with both body and soul destroyed. The 20+ divine agents lowered their heads in silence, clenching their fists, their eyes filled with unwillingness. Number 03 and number 04 exchanged glances, and in the next moment, two terrifying waves of divine pressure crashed down from the sky. The fierce wind blew up the cloaks of 03 and 04, revealing two divine faces, stern and indifferent. 03 with a tall figure held a golden staff entwined with two serpents. Pointing it at the king turtle below, several dazzling golden light pillars descended from the sky, imprisoning the king turtle on the sea's surface. 04 reached out and grasped the void, summoning a giant hammer over 3 meters tall into his palm. His flame-like beard flowed in the air as his figure transformed into a streak of light, flashing directly above the king turtle. The king turtle, locked in place by the golden light pillars, struggled violently. The churning seawater raised giant waves over 100 meters high, and countless vines seemed to come alive, rapidly flying toward the sky. 04 let out a cold snort, raising his giant hammer. Intense flames wrapped around the hammer's edge like a fiercely burning sun, and as he swung it down, it smashed into the overwhelming mass of vines. Boom! 04's figure, like a meteor, broke through the encirclement of vines and rapidly crashed down onto the turtle shell. Witnessing the pressure of two deities exerting their full power, the 20+ agents looked extremely grim. At Notre Dame in Paris, all of them had fought with full strength, only to be defeated by 04 with just a few hammer strikes. Now, seeing the imposing aura of two deities working together, these agents felt despair. They're gods from Olympus. 22 stood among the crowd and spoke hoarsely. The god of travel and theft, Hermes. The god of fire and forge, Hephaestus. Damn it, I should never have gotten involved in this mess. 22's face was filled with regret. The two deities continuously bombarded the king turtle on the sea surface. But no matter how Hephaestus, the god of fire and forge, hammered at the turtle shell, he could only leave a few tiny cracks. Far from breaking it, even creating a small gap was difficult. What kind of absurd defense is this? Hephaestus cursed under his breath. If we can't break it, don't force it, Hermes, holding the golden staff with twin serpents, calmly said. Just control this turtle and let the agents seize the opportunity to enter. Hephaestus nodded, using his flaming giant hammer to frantically tear at the vines spreading from the edges of the turtle shell. At the same time, Hermes turned to look at the sky and growled. Why aren't you going in? Do you all want to die? The agents in the air hesitated for a moment, then gritted their teeth and transformed into streaks of light, rushing toward the edge of the turtle shell and entering one after another. After all the agents had entered, Hephaestus finally retreated, moving to the sky above, looking down at the frantically struggling king turtle below. This turtle is so troublesome, even if that prophet comes he probably won't be able to get in, right? Hermes raised an eyebrow. Hard to say. Since he has the ability to prophesy, he should have already thought of a way to deal with this turtle. Perhaps he's already gone in ahead of us. Regardless, we just need to guard here. Whoever gets the king's treasury will ultimately fall into our hands. The two deities suppressed their auras, hovering in the high sky, constantly monitoring every movement of the king turtle below. Inside the king's treasury, as the trembling of the earth grew stronger, a crack of light suddenly split open above Wu City, and more than 20 black figures flew out from it. They're here. Lin Chia sat in the tavern, his mental power constantly monitoring the scene in the sky. This suddenly appearing light crack was not only dozens of times larger than when Lin Chia entered, but it also opened directly above Wu City. It should be the entry point for these agents, different from where Lin Chia had entered. Because of their grand entrance, the city residents immediately noticed their appearance. What is that? Don't know, never seen it before. Is it another divine artifact malfunctioning? There are people flying out from above. Look, some of them look strange, different from us. Is it an enemy attack? On the streets of Wu City, residents continuously walked out of their houses, pointing at the 20-plus agents in the sky, their eyes full of curiosity. In the sky, the 20-plus agents who had just entered the king's treasury stared at the ancient city below, equally stunned. Isn't this supposed to be the hero king's treasury? Why is there a city inside? One agent asked in confusion. That's not important. The urgent matter is to find a way to take control of this royal treasury, or we're all finished. But for such a large treasury, how do we capture it? Perhaps those natives below might know some clues. They don't have any boundary fluctuations, they should all be ordinary people. Let's grab a few and question them. The agents quickly reached a consensus and dove straight down from the sky, aggressively entering Wu City. One of the agents locked onto a panicking woman in the central square, sneered, and conjured a black hand behind his back, directly grabbing for her body. The woman screamed in shock, instinctively covering her head with her hands. The silver bracelet on her wrist shimmered slightly, and a silver light dispersed into thousands of fine needles, instantly shattering the black hand and piercing the agent's body. The agent's pupils suddenly contracted. Before he could even react to what had happened, his body began to rapidly dissolve. First his limbs, then his torso, and finally his head. He watched in horror, his eyes full of confusion. In less than 5 seconds, his form melted into a puddle of silver liquid flowing on the ground. This scene completely stunned the nearby agents. What the hell was that? Weren't they supposed to be ordinary natives? Not just here, other scattered groups of agents were also simultaneously attacked by divine artifacts. A man walking out of a blacksmith shop brought down a hammer, and lightning descended from the sky to strike an agent. An old woman gently shook a bell and whirlwinds formed into walls, trapping several agents within. But the agents were not to be underestimated either. Although these Wu City residents had divine artifacts protecting them, they were still ordinary people at their core, and only a minority of the divine artifacts possessed defensive capabilities. Several high-level agents regained their composure, avoiding the offensive divine artifacts, each capturing several Wu City residents. They were about to soar into the sky and leave this place, with cries of slaughter and plunder echoing above the streets, creating a chaotic scene. At that moment, an old man leaning on a cane climbed onto the highest wall in Wu City. He was the lord of this ancient city. His aged gaze swept across the chaotic city, his brows tightly furrowed. His fingertips pressed firmly on the cane, and the wooden outer shell quickly crumbled away, revealing the brilliant golden scepter within. Gripping this golden scepter, he slowly raised his hand, then forcefully struck the ground with the bottom of the staff. Boom! A golden ripple instantly enveloped all the agents in the central square. The agents who were about to use their mental power to escape suddenly felt their bodies empty, their feet stumbling, nearly falling to the ground. They looked down at their bodies in shock, their eyes filled with astonishment. Their mental power had disappeared.